All right. What's up, everybody? My name is Chris Mayer, and you're tuned in to The Bit Show, the Boston Indies talk show and happy hour presented by Boston Indies, Boston's home for independent games. We're one of the many great meetups here in the Boston area for game developers to get together and hang out and, talk about the craft, catch up, chit-chat, show each other's work off. So you can check us out online on Twitter at Boston Indies. You can also find us at bostongamedev.com, which is a link to our meetup page, which has links to all the other events that are kind of going on around town. Today, during the pandemic, normally we do monthly meetups, but in the pandemic, we've been doing a weekly talk show, which is what you're watching right now, The Bit Show, where every week we interview local indie devs, about what they're working on and, just kind of help get to know people in the community a little bit better. So we're here today with three fantastic guests. First up, of course, Shae Rossi, who's the VP of Digital Curation for BFIG, which we'll get into in just a minute. Before we get started, two quick announcements. First up, Global Game Jam is going to be on the 27th. I'll post a link to that in the chat. Oh, actually, I forgot to start our fantastic Twitch bot show. Oh, actually, maybe he doesn't have permissions in this channel. Yeah, it seems like that's the case. All right, maybe no bot this week. I'm gonna press the button again. Ah, there we go. Now it's starting. All right, there's bot show. Now I'll drop a link into the chat. There it is. Global Game Jam. Global Game Jam, really good opportunity if you're curious about making games. If you're interested in learning a little bit about the craft. Join the jam, join a team. Some people will be happy to help you learn Unity or Unreal or some other tool. Really good way to kind of get your feet wet and get some help getting started. Or if you're an experienced developer, great way to meet some other people in the community and get together and work on a project together. Not that many opportunities for collaboration just because making games is so hard and such a long process. So, events like Global Game Jam that are pretty short are a really good way to get in there and, get to make something with your friends who you wouldn't get to work with otherwise. So I'm going to be participating in that. We're going to be at the Northeastern site, which is going to be hosted by the Northeastern Game Development Club. Should be a really good time. Please join us. Again, link is in the chat. Second announcement, Boston Unity Group, another one of the fantastic local meetups here, is going to be having a meetup on the, when is it? It's 27th. I'll post a link to it in the chat. 127, that's going to be about using XR, which is like augmented reality and virtual reality in game jams. They run a lot of really good events. Bug is a really good way of kind of getting familiar with Unity if you would like to get to know the Unity engine, which is probably the biggest game engine kind of in the world. They're a really good resource for that. You can just come to their meetings once a month, start to absorb some knowledge. You don't need to have any background going in. Just, come hang out, pick some stuff up, and make some games. Anyway, Ziba turned green again, so that's going to make for an interesting interview. That's fine. We're gonna roll with it. We're just gonna kick this show off. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and let's get into it.
Let's go.
All right.
I think we're live.
We're live.
Hey.
We're doing a pre-recorded show today.
Yeah, we're doing a pre-recorded. So all of this entire show, we'll have Shae on in a second. This entire show was recorded 2 weeks ago, before any Boston Fig Fest happened. So, what are we expecting at Boston Fig Fest?
We woke up that day. I was green. We thought, this is it. We need to record this now.
Yeah. And here's Shae. Excellent. So this is pre-show show. We're bantering, right? We're talking about all the technical issues that we had.
Yeah. All right. Well, allow me, please, since our guest is here, allow me to introduce our guest for those who may not know. Our first guest here today is a narrative designer who is currently writing for the Lord of the Rings Online. She has also written for visual novels, text-based MMOs, twine games, edutainment, comics, and more. Is she tired yet? No. She is a community organizer who has helped run the Narroscope Conference, Boston's own Women in Games meetup, and has previously served as VP of Digital Curation for BFIG. Oh, and she's in grad school. Please welcome Shay Rossi.
I don't think did we get the bot up so that we can have the applause?
I was promised applause.
Yeah. Welcome.
you. Thanks for having me.
We got a hardball question number 1 for you.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's go.
How are you? It's good to see you.
I'm good. I'm excited. I'm wearing makeup for the first time in months. Thank you for this opportunity to put on a dress I paid a lot of money for and actually use it. I still have pajama pants on underneath, but whatevs. We're doing this. So yeah,
I'm also pajama pants. Ichiro,
yes.
How about you?
I am wearing the same pants I've been wearing for the last 3 days.
But are they pajama pants? That's the only thing that matters.
I swapped out of my pajama pants 3 days ago, and I've been wearing track pants, which I'll show you later. We're going to talk about a bunch of things, including pants, and we have a picture of Shae kicking someone while not wearing pants.
I'm very curious about this picture. I have no idea what it's doing, and I'm not wearing pants. Okay.
Well, aren't we doing some world building? Speaking of world building, let's talk about narrative design. So what do you do at Standing Stone?
I'm a content designer, so I write quests and story, not the main plot, because there's people who've been there for like 20 years doing that. But I get to do like side missions right now, and like side quests and repeatable content for like festivals and stuff. The first one that I got to write for was the wedding of Aragorn and Arwen, and that was just absolutely amazing experience. I learned a lot. Yeah, so what's awesome about this game is that I actually get to do some world building in the game editor that they have as well. So I get to place NPCs and quest items and hook them all up to generators and all that stuff. So there was a time in my life when I couldn't decide between level design and narrative, so now I don't have to.
Why choose?
Awesome, yeah.
You hinted at it that there have been people there writing these stories for a long time.
Yeah.
Of course, this is from a much bigger universe. How does that impact your like responsibilities and your opportunities to do things?
It's really interesting. Like one of the gentlemen that's there who is like one of the leads on the lore, he wrote a book that I read when I was like 14 or something. Like this is like I'm meeting my heroes and they're awesome. So that's been really amazing. And everyone just has so much experience and are very, very gracious and happy to like teach you things. So even though I was coming on with, some narrative experience, every time you start in a new company, you have to learn their particular engines and how they do things. So it's just, it's been very interesting because I started a week before the quarantine started. So I was in the office for like a little bit and then we all went home. Shh, buddy. Sorry, my dog.
Well, your dog has something to say too.
Yeah,
it's a good thing. You're at home now more. The dogs.
Yeah, so it was a challenge for everybody but me to work from home because I've been doing it for 10 years. And I honestly, like at some point I was like, oh my goodness, this whole thing with the corona, like it's my fault. Because in my mind I was like, this job is perfect. The only thing that would make it better is if I could have my animals with me while I was doing it. And then lockdown. I'm like, oh, geez, I pushed too hard. I broke it.
Beautiful silver lining. I'm wondering, you have to, you're working within such this iconic universe, and I know a lot of your other work, you have so much control as far as it looks like. You're working in these new places, these new universes. Does working within Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, does it what's the trade-off between so much established framework to work in and go around and not being able to you have to stay faithful to that, I assume.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of freedom within a contained package, if that makes sense. Tolkien's world building was, well, we all know Tolkien's world building is like astounding and amazing and took 50 years. But so there's certain things that we can write in, and playing within like this narrative environment there's so much that you can still do inside of his world. But I do have to check things like, do we have this spice? Like, can we say this tree? Like, because he was very specific in the things that he mentioned. And if he didn't mention them, excuse me, we really can't like use them in some instances.
Well, so do players actually point out, well, Shae.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, actually, our players, many of them are very big in the lore. They show up for the story. They show up for the experience of being in Middle Earth. So yeah, absolutely. If one of the amazing people on our team doesn't catch it, they're going to notice. Absolutely. Yep.
Do you have like a private reference, or is this all, do you have your special, like if you need to figure out if they had coriander, like,
yeah,
you have your own internal encyclopedia for this? Yes. Or is this
we do, yeah. One of the team members, he's like the go-to person.
It's just all the books, right? Every time you have a question, you have to read sequentially through all the books.
Yeah, no, there's a search function for a reason.
And speaking of knowing a lot about Tolkien, you were telling me you are in grad school studying Tolkien?
Yes.
Could you be, is that a degree in Tolkienism?
Tolkieninity. Yeah. So it's going to be a master's degree in Tolkien studies. And that includes language and literature. So doing like a lot of comparative lit stuff, reading all of his sources, like the Kalevala and things like that. And his history, the wars that he went to. And it's just absolutely fascinating. I wanted to get my master's in folklore, but then the recession hit like way back. And for some reason, all the folklore jobs just dried up. It was weird, right? But with this, I can keep studying Tolkien, and it just enhances my work environment as well. And then hopefully one day I'll be able to, turn around and teach at some point. Like, as our generation, we're never going to be able to retire. So I'm going to retire into a full-time teaching position at some day.
I think there are worse lives if you like teaching.
Yeah. I love teaching. Yeah. I've been a dance instructor in the past and taught other things as well. And I just, absolutely. Not as much as I love making games though.
Is there any solid intersection of Tolkien and dance?
Luthien danced in front of Beren, and that's how he met her. He saw her dancing and singing through the woods.
Are there any known details about like the particular kind of dancing that was going on there?
It was definitely crunk.
Well, you heard it here first, and this has been vetted by the entire audience and everybody also working on the game. So
if it wasn't, just head to the forums, let me know. Yeah, no, I don't think they go into detail. I'm pretty sure the elves danced too, because you're immortal, so you pick up things along the way.
Well, there you go. Here's the the picture is from your if you Google Shae Rossi, you come up with
kick.
Yeah, that kick from your Goodreads. I don't know if Chris has that. We can bring it up. You taught dance.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was how do I say it now? So I'm a professional belly dancer. And I did for a long time a format that was called tribal belly dance, which is now being renamed because of the connotations with tribal and cultural appropriation and all that stuff. So it's going through a transition right now where people are trying to figure out like how to define it and how to do it appreciatively instead of appropriately. But yeah, so that piece was a choreography by Sarah Jezebel Wood, and I loved it because I got to be like, do some of my kung fu moves. Like, oh, you can't see my arm, but that was awesome what I just did. You can't see it.
All right, so we've got Lord of the Rings, we've got school, we've got dance. I know you've also worked in comics, which is something I find fascinating. Is it a cousin to working in games, or is it totally different? As a writing medium?
Yeah, so the comics that I worked in were in a video game, but they were still done as like panels. So I've had the opportunity to work in 3D, 2D, and no-D, I guess, whatever text would be environments. So that was a little bit different. the engine that we worked on, this was for Wildermyth, which is a game that has been at Boston Fig multiple times. And actually, I got that job at Boston Fig because I walked up and met them there and gave them my card. And like a year later, they were like, "Hey, we're ready to hire you now." And I was like, "Really? All right." It was absolutely one of the best experiences because that was, again, one of the first times I got to work with art assets and like design all the panels and everything. Usually, if you're writing for comics, you don't do the art as well. And I did not do the drawing of the art. We had an artist who was absolutely amazing. First job I've ever had where they said, art isn't expensive, because she was one of the people that ran the company. So, and she was fast. She was very fast. So, yeah.
So you had to dictate the art.
Yeah, like usually if you were, I think the way that comics are, they almost look like screenplays. Like they describe the panels, and then the artists, like there's different types of artists that put things together. But I got to do that storytelling. It's almost like environmental storytelling in a video game where you're building stuff, but it was like 2D panels, and absolutely so much fun. It was just awesome.
So you mentioned that you walked up to them at a booth, you gave them your card, and you said, "Just hire me in a year."
Actually.
Yeah, can you tell the story? Because I know there are a lot of folks who come to Boston Fig are interested in careers in games.
Yeah, so I'm super shy, actually. Like, what I am, I know. Whatever. I can be really shy, especially when I'm like trying to promote myself in that way. So when I walked up to them, it was because Nate, who's the husband to the artist and owns the company, he had this amazing setup for a laptop, which was like it was almost elven scrolled wood that he'd carved and like made. It was beautiful. So I walked up, like I'm talking about the podium to him, and he starts telling me a little about the game, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a narrative designer." Like that was the day I like had business cards with myself, and I was like, "Here you go." And he's like, "Cool." So we like chatted, and because I was not trying to sell myself, I was just connecting with him over this piece of art that he had made. Like the pressure was off of me. So I have used that going forward in talking to people. Like there's this weird thing where before you're in the industry, like there's this feeling of like almost desperation with like everyone like, "Hello, would you like to connect? Would you like to be connected? We could totally network right now." And then when you're on the other side, you're like, "Oh, honey, come here. Oh, I want to help you." Like you don't have to try so hard. But yeah, so like he was like, "Yeah, we'll give you a call." And I was like, "Cool." Because a lot of people say that and then they don't answer your emails or whatever. So then like a year later, he emailed me and I was like, "What? Oh, whoa.
Who is this random person with an enscrolled laptop?"
Yeah, it was actually, it was absolutely amazing and such a great experience to work with them. They're just fantastic people.
Yeah. So the advice I'm hearing, like they say it, be yourself, talk, be a human. You don't need to capital N network. You just need to, be awesome, be involved in dancing and narrative design, and
everyone who wants a job in games has to belly dance. Yeah.
Well, if you do some sort of dance,
I don't
right?
Yeah, and so much of that story, your story of especially the awkward openings, that really rung true for me. I remember.
Hey.
Oh, hi.
Uh-oh, they're on in 10 minutes. Oh, you saw our next guests too early.
Works.
Sorry.
Just folded. Sorry.
It's too late. This is now your show. You've bumped poor Shay off.
Hi, Shay.
Like,
we love Shay.
I miss you guys.
I know.
Ziba
wanted to check in. I have an email 15 minutes before, so.
No, now Ziba and I are off. We're going to get a drink. You are going to interview Shay. Okay, maybe not.
Oh, man.
Tell me everything.
I'm not green.
When I was born.
Longer green.
Yeah, so I think like one of the main things I would say when you're introducing yourself to someone is, like you said, definitely be yourself. Because people need to know that they connect with you because they're going to be working very closely with you. And games is like, unless you're in a big AAA company, you might not know everybody there, but if a lot of companies are much smaller, so you really have to resonate and connect with everybody on the team, especially when you go in for an interview and stuff. One person can be like, "No, And the whole team will say like, unless you're amazing, you know, but that could happen. So yeah, there's a lot of people that don't realize you need like I don't want to say like a public performance face or whatever, but you have a professional persona basically that you should maintain online and in your life. Because that's people are going to be looking at that. And it's not that you shouldn't be yourself, but yourself shouldn't be a jerk.
Well, and I think to extend that, like there's a lot of folks who have who do interesting things online. Like, you Google Shae, you like, she's currently reading a Tolkien title, Surprise, Surprise, according to, Goodreads. And I kid not at all. Did your outside interests help you land, jobs over the years? It's not just Tolkien, but narrative design, maybe dance.
Yeah, I don't know that dance has. I don't know that dance itself has, because the communities are so separate from game design. Like the dance community is very connected. Well, the tribal dance community. We have like bleed over into the cabaret section, which is the traditional format. But I would say that my outside interests made me a more well-rounded candidate for jobs. Things like my martial arts training that I never expected I would use that in games. But when my first job was like, I was writing fight scenarios as part of my job in my quests. So I was having to describe things. And because, I watched a million Kung Fu movies back when I was doing Kung Fu, I was able to describe them just fine and give like multiple, what I felt were interesting options for kicking people. So you like kicking. Right.
I imagine the more you know, the more you can write what you know.
Yes, absolutely. And for my first job, I was like floored about how much my life experiences were bleeding into my story and making it, I felt, more rich because, I had like these outside interests and stuff. So yeah, I know that other people say this all the time, but you absolutely should go out and live life and experience it as much as possible once this is all over.
Until it's all over, we have to stay in your house, never
Go
leave.
get some virtual experience right now, but not only video games, like other life stuff.
A lot of what you were talking about, like trying to the new person trying to come into games and understand what it is. For me, that seems like there's these issues of context. So people feeling outside and wanting to be inside. And I think one of the things that has really helped a lot of people go from outside to inside are a lot of these community meetups and groups,
yes.
which is something that you've actually put a bit of time into volunteering and to help foster these environments where people can connect to groups. A couple of those are, for example, you've been working on this very festival itself, Boston Festival of Indie.
Not this particular one, but yes.
You don't have to work
Not
on every festival,
version,
Shae. You don't have to be everywhere.
I mean,
who says?
You are at this very moment contributing to this festival.
That's true.
All right, cool. So I'm no longer formally involved then.
what I was you didn't just stumble into this. You're here formally. My point being, in previous years, you have actually operated as the VP of Digital Curation for BFIG. And what does that entail? What's that?
Herding cats. So as the VP, I oversee the lead curators for the different sections of the festival for digital. So if it's like narrative games or art games or like games about accessibility, like all of those have different teams that play test the games. So when you apply to Boston FIG and you send your game in, the first thing that happens is you send in like a video and a small amount of like information about your game, and then those get watched by our curators and they get graded. The ones that seem like they're finished enough and polished enough to move on to the next section get higher like ratings, and then all of the numbers get put together, and whoever's on like the top something or other gets in. I can't remember. I think we limited it last year by how many booths we had. We were like, this is how many games we can fit.
Yeah, is there a lot of discussion behind the scenes about like, oh, I think this game will be a good fit because we did this, or?
We don't judge the games as for like what games will fit the conference. They get judged on certain formats. Does this game achieve what it set out to do? Does it look polished? Is it working? Does it fit into the category that it's like, is it a VR game? Is it a multiplayer game? Is it fun and interesting? Has it done something new? Is it doing something different? Like, can you tell that this game would be like, that it's going somewhere, basically? It's not just like, you know, somebody made like a paper cutouts. And I mean, you could do that as long as your mechanics are good. Yeah, so mostly it has to work and stuff like that. So the amount of like judging that we do, they just kind of get rated and the top ones get in. And then, excuse me, then there's like, from those top ones, the toppiest top ones are the ones that like win the prizes and such. And I will talk with my lead curators about those ones. Especially, I think last year we had a game that tied for first place in one of them. So like we had to kind of make a decision, and I'm like, did I choose the right one?
Well, that's right. And then you're like, I mean, that's where the discussion comes in, as you're saying.
Yeah. And
Okay.
it's kind of like almost impossible because some of the games are just so different from each other, but they're in the same category.
Sure.
Or it's for the overall game, like, oh, it shined this way and did this. And
Mhm.
that's not, even if like a game wins first place, there could be like 4 other games that are just as good.
Right.
That, you know, what the best part about, and if anyone is interested in curating and you are in games, this is a volunteer position and it's not a ton of work and it's a ton of fun. So please reach out to me if you are interested. Shae@bostonfig.com.
Yeah, you get
Okay,
to play.
little
You get to take a
hashtag.
look at a handful of games that are oftentimes,
Yeah.
you know, unreleased, unannounced. Sort of
Yep.
like, you know, the devs are working on it, and this is the first time they're talking about it.
Absolutely. And you get to see the game in its different iterations as well. So as a game designer, it's really interesting because you can see the evolution of a game that you're not working on, but you're kind of connected to it because you see from the first to the polished. For example, we had Perception as one of our games.
Well, that's interesting. Do you know? I know the devs who made Perception. Do you know the devs? We should meet them.
Let's bring them in.
Oh,
are
wait.
they there?
I don't know.
Let's.
Oh,
Oh, hey.
look at that.
Hey.
Oh, look at that. Oh, you guys did win number one, Lee. That wasn't a.
Oh, you got it at hand right there.
Yep.
They
Well,
actually, we always make, I'm sorry, like folks who have joined us, you don't know necessarily, but we have a weekly show called Bit Show that we, you know, is for Boston. And in every show, we make fun of Ziba for A, having won a BAFTA, and B, having never, ever received the actual BAFTA trophy.
Oh, no.
He has a piece of paper that says, I have a BAFTA, but there's like a wink at the end. So
It's like a participation award. They're like,
yeah,
you did a
Is that like
thing.
having a girlfriend in Canada?
yes, that's
Never happened in
exactly.
Canada. Yeah. You wouldn't know it.
Okay, now we have everybody on the
on
right.
a weekly basis, being like, "Where's my trophy?"
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Very. I would be on them.
Politely twittering, tweeting at them.
Of course.
Do we want to ask? I don't know. I know we have to move on. Do we want to talk about WIG and Neuroscope before we move on?
Women in Games Boston is on hiatus. Excuse me, I don't have COVID. Yeah, so Women in Games Boston is on hiatus until I stop coughing. Till this pandemic is over, and I'm planning to move closer to my job, which is closer to the city, so I'll be able to get involved again with that. We are on Facebook, but it's not an active group at the moment. Narscope, unfortunately, is also taking a break this year. But hopefully next year we will be back. Narrowscope is a conference for narrative games, like of all kind, interactive fiction, all sorts of any games that tell a story. So all games. Yeah, so if you're interested in helping out with either of those, let me know. Everything is volunteer, and the more you help out in the industry, the more connected and networked you'll be. And the more people will be like, hey, that person's kind of fun. I see them around. I see their name. I recognize their name on this resume. Yeah, so when we can all go back to normal, please get involved with your local. There's so many groups in Boston. Like, come join us. We are friendly. We don't bite unless it's Tuesday, and we met on Mondays. So
I feel like that's a reference. Anyway, can we keep Shae on, Chris? Do we have to eject her now?
We
I can bow out,
We
though,
can do
too.
whatever we want to do.
We can do whatever we want.
I feel like the sassy third host of the show who like interjects somewhat antagonistically to the host. You know,
well, I have questions. Are you guys ready?
There's a section. So Ziba usually always, thank you Ziba for doing show notes for the Boston, the Bit Show. And I always feel bad when I'm reading from Ziba's notes and I'm like, am I stealing his point? But between the Shae and the Bill Amanda sections, we have a section titled Interlude, and the contents are the word what. So what?
There's a question mark. Yeah.
Okay. Are we
in the what interlude?
We're in the what interlude, so whatever.
Like what?
I don't know.
Is it called outro and intro? Or?
I want Ziba to do this Bollywood thing.
Skipped over the part where I like, hey Shae, so this is great. Thank you for being here.
Oh, sorry.
How can people follow your work or connect with you?
They can play Lord of the Rings online. It's free. I'm on Twitter. I only tweet about game stuff, and sometimes I'll retweet political stuff, when it's really important or whatever. But yeah, mostly Twitter, and I'm on Facebook, but it's my private page. So I am online at shaenanigans.com. That will be in the liner notes, I guess, because it's hard to spell. Yeah, and you can come visit us on Facebook at Women in Games Boston. There's a Facebook group for that. We also have a website as well. I don't think it's been updated in a very long time. Yeah, I've been in grad school, and my co-host Adri had a baby. So.
Oh, congrats to Adri! I didn't know that.
Awesome, thank you. Now we are fully.
Now it's in the what section. Now we can take. We were talking about not wearing pants. I know it's such a trope at this point, but it's like this is the last year is the year of that. So
yeah, we're I don't know if you've caught the beginning of the show. The count so far is 2 pajama pants and 1 track pants.
I don't want track pants.
Bill and Amanda care to add to that tally in any way, or is this none of our business?
So yoga pants can go in every direction. I feel like they're good for so many things. Dress them up, dress them down. So I'm in yoga pants.
Yeah.
So is Bill.
Yeah, we've been remote forever, so we're used to the sort of off and on again pants. Yeah, so I'm wearing jeans right now. Although Amanda did just.
You dressed up. Thank you.
And so I'm wearing jeans, but Amanda did just point out like 20 minutes ago that there's like they're all frayed in the ass. So like.
Yeah,
that's a look. That is style.
I like these jeans too. Like. I don't know if
you clearly sit in them too much. We got to use the stand-up desk.
I don't know how people can sit in jeans. Like I don't.
No?
I have a gratuitous buttocks. That's not happening. Nope.
Perfect. That is some perfect sassy try hosting right there. I like that.
Right.
Those
that
are the interjections we're here for.
Yeah.
But we're leaving the interlude what section and now getting back to our regularly scheduled show. All right.
I liked what.
Serious business here. And allow me to introduce our next guest, please. Our next guests could have coasted on their 10 plus years of professional accomplishments as game dev and writer's teacher, but their irrepressible enthusiasm for games led them to found the Deep End Games. You may have backed 1 or even 2 of their very successful Kickstarters for Perception or Romancylvania. Please welcome Bill and Amanda Gardner.
Hey.
Make sure to clap for the bot.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry for our early entrance, but we're here and we're loving it.
We don't follow any rules, man.
Yeah, man. I wear jeans to a yoga pants.
You just scratch out that question I had about what rules you follow.
Just throw it out.
There are no rules. Yeah.
I love how Ziba. I'm sorry to Ziba specifically bought and opened a pack of index cards so that he could rip them up during the show whenever.
Amazing. Props are king, man.
It's also nice when you're doing the Letterman thing or whatever. You stack them and
it feels very organized. I would love to just
what's the right
shuffle like little
shuffle them. What question? What order are we asking the questions in?
Like,
we don't know.
Throw caution to the wind and just toss it.
There you go.
All right. Well, congrats on just over 6 years of running the Deep End games.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's awesome. Was naming the Deep End about the enveloping experiences you're going to create, or the end you were jumping into being owners of a business?
Neither.
well, no, we did want it to be right. Like we spent all this time there, like, what is a business? Like, what is a game? And naming things is honestly one of the hardest parts of any dev. Honestly, like, I would always dread when we sit down, like back at Irrational, sit down and like try and name the plasmids or vigors or whatever, and what different names. And Ken would always be like, bum, 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 bum. But, designers would be like, oh, and this one is called, and we'd sit there in silence. And then, like, it wasn't good brainstorming. But anyway, so Deep End, we wanted something that, captured the sort of little bit of danger, a little bit of fun. You think about the Deep End, you think how it evokes the sort of games you played in pools when you were growing up, but also the ocean and the sort of little riskiness. A lot of the things that it evokes, I think, really.
Yeah, early on we talked about, our games being scary fun, kind of like that thrilling feeling.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it's because he likes to swim.
Yeah.
Huh.
He was a kid who would just spend every summer in the pool.
Yeah, we had a whole laundry list of names, and then finally we went to my family. I was like, we can't name the company. Help us out. And they were like, oh, what about Deep End? And we're like, yeah, okay, cool. And then when somebody came in and had like the reverse not Zuckerberg, in the Facebook movie, what's it called? Where he comes in and he's like, what? Drop the.
Drop the. Add the.
But we had the opposite reaction when someone was like, do you mean like depend? Like depend?
Depend games, yeah.
And I'm like,
games for seniors. Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm not good at naming things, except for our children.
Except for.
Well, wait a second. So, Amanda did.
Wait. We're good at naming things because Romancylvania
is awesome.
Exactly the experience in one word.
Yeah, but wait a second, Amanda. Bill didn't say that Deep End isn't good at naming things. He says that he isn't. So I'm going to guess that.
Yes. Okay.
So
there you go. Case closed.
Can you talk about Romancylvania? Congrats on that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, love to. We talk all day about it.
The name Romancylvania. You get it.
Yeah.
It's just
not just the name, the whole project. I mean, you just succeeded in 2020 in running a crowdfunding campaign, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Of all the things that I suck at, naming things is one, and then timing is the other one. Because we launched in the during the election. We launched during everything that's going on.
Mercury
COVID.
in retrograde. Terrible idea.
It was 2 console launches.
Yeah.
So terrible timing. But we had that crazy comeback, right?
Okay, so it took a year off my life. I think we made like 75% of our.
Not quite, but it was a lot.
The majority in the last 12 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Whoa. If I'm being honest, we 2 days before we kind of written off. We're like, we got plan B, and then at one point, I won't say, like, there are a couple of things. Like, I got a conciliatory email from a friend who I really respect, being like, hey, like, so you saw the numbers, it's you're cool. It was this whole like, hey, it's over, give it up. And
wait, who writes an email before it's over saying, sorry, Bill,
it was implying. It wasn't outright saying sorry, it didn't make it, but it was just the tone of it was like, you guys are screwed. And so it was like 18 hours before I started to say, but where things started around. Like, I just was like, oh, you and I just started like messaging people individually, and like we did all like, and she did the same thing. I had a similar situation upstairs because we weren't even talking about it at that point. We're we're not gonna make it. And she and my sister were upstairs, and our
producer, who's wonderful.
Yeah, they started to hatch their own plan, and I hatched my own plan, and we started to break through in all these different ways, and I've never seen anything like it. It was the greatest rally in anything. I'm a Tom Brady fan too.
Patriots, it's like New England Patriots, where they like, what is it, 3-20?
27-3, I believe.
27-3,
Yeah.
you know, like in the Super Bowl, like we
21,
came back, we did it. And I'm glad we did, because it's a really fun game, and I'm glad it's getting a chance.
Wait, do you have an understanding of what made it come back? What swung?
Yeah,
things?
Yeah, what's your secret?
It was a number of different things, honestly. So we had, you know, if I can be frank for a second, I think we really messed up a lot of our messaging early on. I think that I personally misjudged the audience completely. I completely misjudged the audience. And I think
Right, well, so actually, let me interject. Can you describe Romancylvania for folks who are not familiar with it?
Absolutely.
In our studio audience.
You want to do it? Or?
I would say it is a cheeky Metroidvania. So it really brings a new level of sort of like context and narrative to the Metroidvania genre by adding romance. And so it's actually it's a reality TV show where Dracula needs to find love. Which I mean we find hilarious, but the show is run by the Grim Reaper, and so Grim wants to see crazy drama, and he's bloodthirsty. So it's just fun chaos that Grim has you fetching things for characters and going out into this crazy world, doing all these feats of love.
Okay, so like this definitely sounds like this is a concept that you would think sells itself, or I would think that sells itself. But this is, you mentioned, Bill says the messaging wasn't like that initially. What went wrong, and then what went right?
Yeah, I think that so we broke down the different people we thought that this game would appeal to. And the way I see it, you've got people who are into, you know, dating sims and romance novels and that kind of romance games, I guess you could say, visual novels, is what I meant to say. People are really into narrative and world building, and you have the sort of retro gamers, the people who are like sort of old school action adventure games. You have the Castlevania fans, you have all these different groups, right? And we broke them down. We said, okay, we viewed the biggest audience that we would appeal to be like the Castlevania / Metroidvania fans, right? Mm-hmm. And so we hit them pretty hard. We basically, most of our messaging or the trailers, everything we did was really targeted towards them. There was a lot of like nods and a lot of like inside baseball bits and all of this. But the reaction we got was just a whole lot of just like...
They were outraged.
Yeah, there was a lot of like, just anger. Like, what is this? Why are you doing this to Castlevania? Yeah. Like, and that was a big surprise to me. And, you know, I don't like to talk about this, but there was a lot of like, you know, frankly, you know, homophobia and a lot of like, and you know, I don't like to talk about that because I feel like it detracts from the game, and I feel like it's kind of I don't feel like we have the right to necessarily be like, oh, you know, hey, we're being, you know, slammed by a bunch of homophobes and that kind of thing. So I don't like to talk about it that much, but the message was very clear that we'd hit the wrong notes with the wrong group, and so we started to test out with other groups, with the dating sim fans. We started to test out with people who are much more into story, and the reaction was completely different. Like, oh my god,
I need this in my life. You custom made this for me. And I mean, the whole time I'd been like, dude, thirsty nerd girls, that's where it's at with this game.
And I said, I more or less said, I think that's not.
Shay's nodding. She's like, I get it.
She signed up for it. Wait, so this was like
I was an early adopter thing.
Yeah, he's the reason that you hit your target. No, is this, if I understand correctly, and I'm just hearing this now for the first time, this was like hours before the end of it that you said, look, let's test this new direction.
We had done a bunch of tests leading up to it and got little bits of data. We're talking about like, hey, let's run a $50 Twitter ad, or let's try a story with this group, or let's reach out and we would always get roughly the same kind of reactions, which is the positive. It's the exact opposite of what we're getting with the other audience. And so we kept testing that out in different ways, and it kept coming back. And we had made all these connections with different, finally established all these inroads, because most of my quote unquote audience, if you will, most of the people that I know are people from the, you know, the shooter space, first person space. I don't have any connections really in the visual novel space. I don't have any connections in the realm. It's not entirely true, but it's a fraction of what I have elsewhere. And so I didn't know how to get inroads in this, but we had built up all these different connections. You know, like Kid Fox, for example, we reached out to them.
Yeah, they were so kind to give us a signal boost, and they're so awesome in what they're doing. And I feel like there's definitely like you know, some overlap in fans, and we just started, you know, sort of realizing who this game really is is for,
Yeah.
in a way. And it was so awesome because the people who got on are so excited about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, we realize we are doing something right to have something that polarizing.
Sure.
We know exactly, like, we're making something pretty distinct.
Yeah.
So I'm actually excited about the disparities. So.
Yeah.
But
no.
yeah, we found it.
Yeah.
And we did it against all odds. Like, I'm sure somebody will write a case study on, like, yeah, in 12 hours you went from, you know, so.
Yeah, at one point I saved, it was all kinds of data we can go through. We haven't really dug into it that much, but if you look at the curve, usually you get biggest periods of the first like 48 hours, first 24 hours to 48 hours. That's huge. You know, it's usually, you want to be about 50%. And in fact, just quick aside, we had plans to reach out to all kinds of marketing experts and this sort of thing, and these companies that have emerged. The whole Kickstarter game is completely different now than when we did our first Kickstarter.
Yes.
And not to go off on a quick tangent, but you know, we had reached out to a number of these different companies that specialize in the marketing for Kickstarter, and they have these hundreds of thousands of gamers or whatever, where they can targeted outreach and that kind of thing. And we reached out to them like a few weeks before, for whatever reason didn't hear back, and then about 2 or 3 days into the campaign, they finally responded. It's like, oh yeah, you're not going to make it. You should cancel your campaign. And
in case you didn't hear that, 2 or 3 days into the campaign, they told us we were going to fail.
Yeah. And they said what you should do is you asked for way too much. You should ask for like $30,000, and then you crush that. And then because I understand why a company doesn't want to invest any time and money into something that doesn't get funded. And you want to have that 100% success rate, right? And so it's been gamified. Kickstarter is the point. And I get it. That's hey, whatever works. But a lot of people out there are very specifically, they got it figured out. And so that was a horrible lesson we learned in the middle of it. We spent all this time planning and doing what we thought was the right approach based on old learnings from our first Kickstarter.
But also, we don't want to be disingenuous. We don't want to be like, oh, this will only take $30,000. Like, BS. Like, look at what we're making. People are going to declare shenanigans on that. They're going to say that's not.
But not shenanigans. Sorry.
Not Shane. No. But yeah, we didn't want to be disingenuous.
So yeah, it was a wild ride, but we learned a ton, and we could go on forever about, you know, what we learned and do's and don'ts and that kind of thing. But it is just it's changing all the time, and I think it's an entirely different beast than it was back then. It was still an amazing experience. Obviously, it helps that we succeeded, but it was harrowing, to say the least.
Now you're focused on you're making it. You're past that drama of it. And my light internet stalking tells me that Bill, it seems like you may have been designing this game since you were a small child.
In some sense, yeah. That's one of the big takeaways for me right now is that at some point you got to have that sort of boldness to say like, I'm going to do this thing, and it doesn't matter that I have no experience in a Metroidvania. I'm super passionate about it, and Castlevania and Super Metroid are two of my absolute favorites, and that's kind of part of my DNA. You think about it, when I was working on BioShock, I was constantly trying to work in all kinds of Super Metroidvania mechanics, like, you know, that first room where you get Electro Bolt, the way that flows and that sort of thing. That was literally being like, okay, this is how they do it in Super Metroid. Like, let's talk about and the way tools are introduced and the way you progress and all that kind of thing. And obviously there are a lot of hands involved in that. So I'm not being like, oh, that's all mine. But I was always looking to put in as many of those elements. But I had never worked on a platformer like this, an action platformer. So I've always wanted to do something like this, and I don't know what gave us the courage to finally go ahead and be like, yeah, we've never done this before, let's just do it. What the tipping point was. Because
we believed it would be as fun as we thought it would
be.
I mean, so this was we were working on something else. So we were working on like a horror anthology.
Yeah.
But like, man, working in horror for as long as we have, like, it really drags you down. Yeah. And we've got 4 kids, and like, it was really like vibrationally like, ugh. Until finally, like, one day Bill was kind of like, hey, what do you think of this? Romancylvania. And I was like, take my money. Like,
wait a second. You started with the title.
Yes.
You just said you weren't good with names. That is the perfect name.
Actually, actually is good with games. And I was like, I don't care what it is, like I want in. And that was like our private joke for a while, like, oh, if this does well, we'll be able to make Romancevania. And then one day he just turned to me and he said, if you could work on anything right now, what would it be? And I was like, Romancevania. And we dropped everything. Like we had a working demo. We had, you know, there were pitches out for it. And we were like, no, this is what we want to make. And this is what we're going to make. And our team could not be more excited because each of them, we had been like, hey, so what do you think of something, you know, called Romancevania? And they were all had like the drop, like, oh my God, like, yes. So the fact that like our whole team and a lot of our like game dev acquaintances were like, wait, tell me about this. Give us sort of the courage to just be like, no, we're going to do what we want.
Yeah.
So the
I have a
passion.
question.
Oh,
sorry. Do you feel like so that there's been heightened excitement about this types of game because of games like Hatu for Boyfriend, excuse me, and Boyfriend Dungeon and stuff? Like that's a local group that's like making a game around here. So I felt like that audience is like there and been generated by other games kind of like this.
Definitely. But I do want to say that from my perspective, I think it's all about the people who play Mass Effect and Dragon Age that do it for the relationships.
Yeah.
Because I, for one, speed through all the combat in those games. Like, wait, I want to get like, you know, in Dragon Age, I want to get to the campfire so that we can just like talk and like and like flirt with people. And like, yes, I romanced Garrus in Mass Effect. So for me, it's not necessarily like that there are these dating sim games out there that are getting trajectory. It's the games that have dating as a little slice that people get absolutely amped about. Yeah. And that, like, I'm clearly very passionate about that. So.
That's awesome.
No, it's a great question. It's super exciting to see a lot of this sort of convergence and but I think a lot of it does speak to the fact that we're leaving a lot on the playing field as an industry. I think that, you know, the initial idea, so I play Symphony of the Night at least once a year. I do a full playthrough because I'm that much of a nerd. But I sat down and I was playing it one time, and I remember being in like the crystal sort of caves at the basement of this thing. Oh, kitty cat. So I was in the basement, and I remember there were these monsters you fight, or these enemies you fight, Salem witches. And I remember thinking to myself, like, it's so weird. Dracula's got all these different monsters just hanging around his castle. It's like, did he have some kind of ball, some sort of gala? And this is like the after party. Like, what are they all doing there? And I was like, and I'm looking at the Salem witches, like, it'd be really cool if you could date the witches. And I was like, okay.
Romancevania. That's for the word.
That's amazing.
But yeah,
I play Monster Prom.
A little bit of it, yes. I think that it's really interesting though, because that falls to me more in the visual novel space, and I think that I think that there's a way to blend them the same way in Mass Effect and Dragon Age. I think that there's ways to build enriched worlds that are fully realized, and you know, because when I'm playing, like I said, when I play Symphony of the Night, and you get these little snippets of conversation. It's not known for its story, of course, but I want I want more of that. I wanted to contextualize things. I want to be like, why am I here and what's going on, and not just the sort of nudge, like, oh, he's bad, go get out there and fight him. I want to be able to shape the story a little bit. I want to be able to get to know the characters, and so yeah, I think that it's just exciting to be able to see so many different people coming at different genres from different angles. I mean, like, hey, what about this thing that everyone has forgotten about for forever?
That excites us.
Yeah.
So you've got clearly this the Castlevania, the Metroidvania well of mechanical experience, inspiration to draw from. Where do you go to for your romance? You know, you've mentioned Dragon Effect, and Mass Age.
I'm actually, I don't talk about this a whole lot, but I'm actually a published romance author with Simon & Schuster. So they're very big. I wrote 3 books for them. And so I am friends with a number of very, very, very high profile romance authors. I know them well. It's not my favorite genre to write. In fact, I write mainly urban fantasy, but I know how to write romance. And, you know, even in my urban fantasies, my agent says that the best thing I do is write relationships. So I have quite a bit of experience in romance. So that's why I'm confident that that I can make the romance work within games. So
I'm just sort of awestruck. You said you don't talk about it much. it seems so relevant.
It is. I know. It's funny because I'm a teacher, and so I try to keep the romance stuff to a minimum to talk about because I feel like there's a semi-professional conflict of interest here and there. Like I taught years ago, but I feel like I need to have that sort of boundary. But yeah, I write romance. It's great and it's fun.
Were you able to mobilize that audience when it came down to the last 12 hours of your Kickstarter?
No, not really. And some people have brought that up, but that demographic does not play games for the most part. And that's what I have learned. They're significantly older, usually. And yeah, it's really not the same audience. Because I did try. I definitely did try. And I sort of got some of my awesome romance author friends to share the game and whatnot. And it never picked up speed with any of them. But who knows? It's a brave new world out there.
If you want to know the sort of ties to romance here, our lead Drac, the male version of Drac anyway, he reads he does the voices for the
50 Shades books. Yeah. So I'm friends with E.L. James, who wrote the 50 Shades books. And so I said, who do you like for voice actors? And she said, the guy who read the 50 Shades books, Zach Weber, is incredible. So we got him. He's our Dracula. Wow. So our Dracula is the narrator of 500 romance novels. So he's got a voice.
Yeah, he's amazing. We were recording him remotely, and Amanda was running the show, and I was upstairs working, and the house was like shaking with his voice. It was like just so reverberating.
Resonant. So good.
So yeah, he's something else. Yeah, it's a whole. Like you said, it's a whole new world, and you see all these kind of interesting crossovers. So.
So it's interesting to me, so we talked to Shae, who is getting her master's in Tolkien and dances, and you all.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, you missed the first part of the. We should have had you all sitting, and then Amanda, I know you. You write, and then also I think you teach in mindfulness, or at least you did at a pirate conference at GDC.
That's right. I had such a nice time with that.
Can you talk about what I'm going to just really quickly tangent. We have only a few minutes left. What do game developers need to know about mindfulness that we're not doing?
I think that number one, meditation does not have to be difficult. In fact, it could be literally just counting your breaths, and it impacts you chemically almost instantly. One of the first things I talk about is that there's a breath that you can do that can give you the equivalent of a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. Like it can bring you that up and that down. And so
go ahead. You taught us that, so it's quick. Go ahead.
Right, but like the fact that you can change your state that quickly and de-escalate from a situation that quickly, like that's meditation. It's not sitting in the woods alone. But anyway, the cup of coffee breath, to get yourself, like if you're having like a 2 o'clock feeling and you don't want to drink Red Bull, you would inhale quickly 3 times, so, and then 1 long exhale. And you do that for a minute, and the oxygen going straight to your brain just gives you this great buzz. And then the one that does the opposite, the glass of wine, it's the opposite. You do 1 long inhale and then 3 short exhales. And you can actually, within like 3 breaths, you can feel the chemical letdown. Like you genuinely feel your muscles loosen. It's unbelievable. But
right. And I kind of felt like our entire audience just did both of those. So is there like, what if you do?
So
it nullifies.
Yeah, what happened? Cross the streams, right? What's the LSD breath?
Oh, well, they just decriminalized shrooms in Somerville, so we can.
Somerville, really?
Oh my gosh!
Wow,
interesting. I think that one's just hold your breath till you pass out and see what happens.
Perfect. Don't try that at home, folks.
But yeah, I think that working with your breath and just feeling into your physical body and being aware of your feet and being aware of your, just that physical awareness and breath can genuinely impact your stress astronomically. And the second thing is emotional resilience. Gaming is stressful, but we need to learn to just feel what we got to feel and move on quickly. So that sort of like that bounce back, it takes time to work on, but I think that like noticing that like, oh wow, I kind of came back from that slump a minute earlier than I did last time. Those are the two things that for me are the biggest takeaways. So, yeah.
Good.
Well, you all are my sharp intake breath of coffee air being on this. That's me wrapping it up because we're out of time. But I meant it.
That's the what.
Thank you all so much for this.
Thank you all.
I really enjoyed having
This
you
was
on.
so
Thank you
fun.
for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Wait, real quick. Deep End folks, where can people connect with you?
On Twitter, we're at The Deep End Games, and on Facebook, facebook.com/The Deep End Games. I'm at Amanda S. Gardner. S is for spooky.
Oh, I forgot mine. Sorry, Game on Gardner. That's me. Whatever.
Game on Gardner.
Game on Gardner. It's Twitter.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Everybody, connect with Bill and Amanda and Shay and our wonderful guests, and go enjoy the rest of the Boston Festival of Indie Games online right now. We didn't talk enough about what a cool setup they have, and it's very effective. Go to the show floor and see things. I think that's our time. Back
Do you
to
want to drop
Chris.
the link info for Boston Fig?
It's bostonfig.com.
Damn.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure everyone who's watching this is probably aware and possibly currently on the show floor.
Stumbled in off the street into a stream. They don't know what they're talking about. They're breathing.
There's romantic vampires and breath and belly dancing.
It's worth noting that you can still back Romancevania because we have backer kit. So
Woo! Do it.
There you go.
Send that link over too.
I would just say you can find it. TheDeepEndGames.com will just link you, or our Kickstarter. Just Romancevania. That's us.
It's the only
Title
one.
ever.
It's the only one.
we're also masters of promotion. So
That's
just
us.
whatever. Just search for us.
Just whatever. You'll find it. It's fine.
All right, that is going to do it for our show today. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Thank you to Caro and the folks at Boston Festival of Indie Games for letting us, run a show as part of their stream today. Anyone who's interested out there in, making some games, come hang out at Boston Indies. You can find us on Twitter at Boston Indies, BostonGameDev.com to find the other meetups. And that's going to do it for us. Thanks so much for tuning in, and please enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks.
Let's go!